Hey, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of the one and only Crash Course Podcast. You know, we've been doing here for a long amount of time now, right? From our evolution from the radio days all the way to the podcast days. All right, so hopefully everybody got to check out the last show. I thought that was pretty cool. We had a representative with us from V&J Auto Body. V&J Auto Body, we love V&J Auto Body. They're our amazing sponsor. And Donna is one of the key components of V&J Auto Body. So we had Donna on with us, and we had a very entertaining show. So hopefully you got to check that out. If you didn't, please go check it out. I'm certain I've seen it all over the place already. Instagram, of course, it's up on YouTube. Check out our YouTube channel. Folks, don't forget, please, you like YouTube? I love YouTube, right? I am a big YouTuber. I'm a musician. I play the drums in a band now. I rely on YouTube for everything, right? It's the best thing that ever happened. And so if that's your thing, please, we got an amazing YouTube channel. Go check us out there, right? I think you're going to like it. We have a lot of videos up there. We've shot a tremendous amount of videos over the years. Most of them are pretty entertaining. So check that out, all right? And of course, you know, we're everywhere that you want to be, which is on Instagram. I don't know if we're on, are we on Spotify? I don't think we're on Spotify anymore. I think we migrated away from that. We are, however, we did get moved on to X, all right, which was formerly Twitter. All right, so if that's your thing, you like that, go check us out over there, okay? We are looking to get added onto a couple other venues. Speaking of that, I hope everybody gets a look at our new setup here, all right? I'm loving it, all right? We're very fortunate today. Speaking of V&J Auto Body, we have in studio with us today one of the owners of V&J Auto Body, Chandler, Varone, and we're going to be speaking with him shortly here. All right, after I get through all the relative pleasantries of the day and some announcements. So, speaking of the new format, okay, I hope everybody likes it. Check it out. All right, we've moved to a new location thanks to our amazing partners here at Varone Media Solutions. Folks, I can't say enough about Varone Media Solutions, all right? If you're looking for that kind of support and you're looking for that kind of marketing and advertising power, you got to reach out to Varone Media Solutions, all right? Anthony is dynamite. He is a superstar. We wouldn't be where we are today without his help and without his expertise and his technical knowledge. So give these guys a shout out, all right? If you're looking for that kind of thing, you need to get them involved, all right? They're going to be able to move your organization to the next level. Speaking of the next level, we're hoping, going forward this year, we're hoping to move Crash Course into some more venues, all right? We're looking at Apple Podcasts, all right? And we're also looking at possibly TikTok, although we don't know if TikTok's gonna survive, right? Right. I mean, we keep hearing it's gonna live another day. I don't know. I have my own opinions about TikTok, but apparently, people smarter than me seem to think that it's a great platform, and I'd like to see us find a home there, along with some other additional spots as well, which would be Truth Social, and as I said, Apple Podcast. All right. So these are some of the things. We also, you know, I'm always trying to change up the format here. I'm always trying to make it a little interesting, a little exciting, because this can be a little mundane, right? We talk about insurance products. We talk about collision, auto body, you know, the right and wrong things to say and do when you're dealing with your insurance company, you know, why every body shop isn't the same as every other one, and then why there's thousands of them around here, right? We talk about that all the time. And I know that's not coffee table fare, and it's definitely not something you're bringing up at a barbecue, right? You know, hey, by the way, Joe, crack me a cold one. I'll talk to you about my insurance policy, you know? No, nobody's talking about that. I get it. All right. So that's why we do here. All right. Because we help the folks. We're all about helping the folks. We've been helping the folks since day one, and we're going to continue to do that moving forward. So in that vein of trying to keep things interesting, you know, we've enlightened the program a little bit over the last 3 months, all right, by bringing some other issues, some other topics in that don't necessarily address those mundane things, even though that's our core focus, of course. So with that in mind, we're trying to go back to, if you guys followed me on the radio, you know, we used to do the question of the day, which was a phenomenal success. All right. And the folks had a great time with that. It was fun. It was educating. And it was also interesting, right? Because we would pick different topics. I remember we did the one with racing history on Long Island, which garnered quite a bit of excitement. And we were averaging 7 to 8 calls a show there at the height of that. But that was one of the topics that we had one day when we discussed, you know, we asked callers to call in regarding the history, their knowledge of the history of racing on Long Island, among other things. So we're working with the amazing people at Varone Media Solutions to see if we can work that back in, and hopefully we can. I mean, I think there's a way we can do it. It's going to be a little more technical, all right? But I know most people thought, I know I'm a dinosaur, I'm prehistoric here. So I know most people out there are a lot better off with this stuff than I am. And I'm sure if we put something together that involves a little more user interface, that everybody, our listeners, will be perfectly comfortable with that. And I really want to bring it back because it's a lot of fun. And I think it helps us have more personal touch with our viewers. You know, we did things like give little gift cards away, 7-Eleven and stuff like that, $10 gift cards, and we would send some swag out and everything. And I think we could do that here. We can get some really cool V&J swag to the folks. Yeah, it's a good way to support our sponsor and build up the brand recognition here. So stay tuned for that. All right, looking forward to that. All right, that's something we're working on as we move forward into the brand new year here. All right, so let's get to it. All right, I'm excited. Hey, what do you think about this, huh? Is this something else? This only happens at Varone Media. So, folks, we have 2 chairs and a table, and we have the Rock of Power here. All right, so I call it the Rock of Power. I don't really know what this thing does. Apparently, it gives off good vibes.
It's a salt lamp, yes.
It's a salt. It's a
salt
salt cave thing.
Yeah.
All right, if you're into that, terrific. Here we are. All right.
It also tastes really good over most food. I only use Himalayan pink salt in cooking. Oh. I prefer that over like regular kosher salt. It's a better taste.
Hey, what do I always say about this show? Educational and entertaining, and it's free. All right? Doesn't cost you a dime. You get smarter every time you listen to the show, and you don't have to invest a penny. So we have some gurus here in the studio now. We have salt. What did you call it? Himalayan salt? Himalayan salt, supposed to improve the vibes here. I think the vibes are always good anyway, but what the hell? Varone Media Solutions thought that this would help things out. So we have the rock. All right, we have a fancy table here. Maybe someday we'll be pouring cordials and some spritzes. I don't know. But at any rate, welcome to the show, Chandler. We're very excited to have Chandler here. Chandler has been gracious enough to take some time out of his very busy day, and he is a very busy person. He's the owner of a very large modern-day facility in the auto body industry. We're going to talk to him about that. And that brings along with it, of course, a lot of responsibility and certainly a lot of stress and a lot of other things that demand a lot of his time. So we're very thankful for you taking some time out of your day today to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, great. So let's get to it. Let's start by asking Chandler a little bit about Chandler. So how about you give the folks a little bit background on you, who you are, how long you've been in the industry, and also I also like to, well, let me put it this way, all right? Because I want to know the real truth about how you felt once they turned around and said to you, "Hey, you now own this operation. You now own this place." All right. So give us your perspective on that.
My background, my history, the 60-second elevator pitch.
I like it. 60-second elevator pitch. You got more than 60 seconds here. There's no stress here. This is a relaxed environment.
I mean, I can talk until you die, basically, and about myself. But I'll try not to do that because that's not fun.
Right.
But grew up on Long Island, always involved in V&J ever since literally I was 3 or 4. My dad built my first RC car, not RC car, like when you sit in the
right.
The first, what do they call it? What are they? The electric, not go-kart. It was like
the
electric, like the little.
I know what you're talking about.
Whatever it is, whatever. Anyways, he built that at the shop.
Yes.
And so, I have V&J in my veins. Went away to school. Kind of always knew that I was going to be back at V&J. I had gotten a job in defense contracting with General Dynamics, and started that job with the intention of eventually quitting it because I just wanted to try my degree and see if I could do something on my own, which I could, but it was not enough. I am an entrepreneur through and through, and I bleed, whatever blood.
So hold on. So you were actually able to apply your degree to something?
Yes.
That's phenomenal, folks.
I wanted to make sure
most of us come out of college and that never happens.
I wanted to make sure that I was a program performance management analyst.
Right.
So I measured the performance of the program to see if it was on track, behind schedule, ahead of schedule, and make sure that the program wasn't going to run out of money.
Right.
Takes accounting and progress and kind of mashes the two together. And I had a project management degree from Arizona State, so it was a blend of all of that stuff. So that was the beginning part of me. Came back to the shop in 2018 full time. Started on the production side of things and made sure that I was able to understand all the different aspects of the business on the production side. And then during COVID, kind of transformed onto the customer side and wound up taking over the business. That was a whole another story for another time. That could be a podcast in itself.
Right. So let me, just to set the table a little better here though, because you had mentioned V&J when you were younger and that. So your dad had been intimately involved in V&J for many years, for many decades.
Since 1998, I think it was. So I was 3. Basically, he started as a technician in the body heavy collision technician at the shop, and worked his way up through manager. Had a possibility to purchase a portion and be an owner, and then since the early 2000s has been an owner of V&J. And then in 22, basically we helped his late partner exit, and we took over the remaining part of the business.
Right. I actually knew your dad when he worked for another shop in Lindenhurst, which was pretty cool.
Yes.
Okay, so now you become the owner, right? The old guy leaves, you're young, right? Very young. And next thing you know, bam, you're a $14 million operation with a lot of people that have to eat. So, I mean, how does that, like, after the initial,
it's still wearing off, I would say.
Yeah.
I would still, and we've all made our own mistakes, and being in a growing business, it's an ever changing challenge, and every day is a new challenge. And if I didn't have entrepreneurship in my veins, I definitely would have given up a long time ago. But I, see a challenge, I see an opportunity, I try to make it better. And whether that's on the customer facing side and, serving a need of a customer, or it's on the business side and serving a need of an employee, there's always room for improvement. And, whether we grew too fast, whether we scaled too much, whether we did something wrong in one way or another, there's always an opportunity to, change, pivot, and adjust. It's, nothing is written in stone. And everybody makes mistakes.
Right. Well, speaking, when you said scale and when you said about taking over, and I mentioned the $14 million enterprise on a large operation, right?
Yeah.
Let's focus on that, okay? Because you and I, now, folks, full disclosure, I always tell the folks that I work at V&J. I'm a writer there. So, I myself have been involved in this lovely industry for 30 years, right? I was, I tell the people all the time, I was an insurance adjuster, inside, outside, the whole thing, right? Handle claims, settle claims, injuries, all this shit, no fault, the whole 9 yards. And now I've been on the body shop side. It'll be 10 years, in the end of July. But I think for V&J, and that's why I wanted to get your perspective on being a young guy that just all of a sudden took over. It's not like you bought like a 2-car operation, right? I mean, you bought a small operation. You bought a huge operation, which I would think by anybody's practical standards is a reflection on the 21st century, right? It's big, but it's also productive. And it's also reflective of investment in equipment and people and resources and training and things like that. So how does that compare with the rest of the industry? Like, how do you contrast V&J and, where we're at as an organization with an industry that doesn't necessarily always,
I get where you're going, and
kind of, I guess I'm trying to say that there's not always equilibrium with that, right? That we're big, successful, state of the art, but contrast that with the rest of the industry.
Yeah. The industry is very fragmented and also very behind. They don't keep up with the times,
Right.
and so we try to. And this was even prior to taking over. Tried to stay on the forefront and do stay on the forefront, whether it's training, whether it's equipment, whether it's certification. Just being the first to do something and not being late to the show. And that definitely helped make it possible to separate ourselves and be a unicorn in a space that doesn't have a really good rep,
Right.
Being completely honest.
Right.
It's got a very old school, Italian mafia movie reputation.
Yeah.
And it's, you have to be a differentiator. You can be a competitor, you can be a competitor that is similar, or you can be a differentiator. And being a differentiator helps separate yourselves, helps create your own customer base, find that niche, and make sure that you're successful in your niche. And that is mainly the reason why we were able to do what we were able to do, and continue to do that, and try to make sure that we stay on that, because it's what's in our DNA. We operate very differently than any other shop out there, and try to stay away from falling behind. And just
I would agree. I mean, it definitely. I mean, at least from my perspective, as somebody that's been working there now and knows the industry from kind of both sides, I think it does create a tremendous amount of separation from the competition, right? But I think the challenge for us is how do we then turn that into a competitive edge, which results in obviously more revenue.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, because at the end of the day, let's face it, right? We're not in this as a hobby. It's not a charity event.
No,
so, I mean, it's a business.
It's a business.
Right.
And I'll probably say this 10 times during this recording, but I was at an executive education course a few weeks ago, and they talked about building a moat around your business, and ensuring that you have a stickiness with your customers,
right.
and retaining those customers, and being in an industry that you were just telling me a stat half an hour ago that the average time a customer comes, the average person has an accident every 10 years?
Every 10 years.
So
that's
if you think about
Department
that,
of Highway Traffic Safety. Yep.
So if you think about that, you have to be really sticky. You have to retain those customers, build those relationships, and make sure that they know exactly where they're going, because 10 years is a very long time to basically not see somebody. I mean, obviously we have those frequent flyers that just don't know how to drive, but that's a completely different situation. But the average customer is every 10 years. So you have to make sure you have that book of business and that,
right.
relationships.
And I talk about that here a lot. I really do, because you just hit on that. So every 10 years, right? And I talk about that with the folks about the difference between mechanical and body shop. All right. Check it out, right? You have mechanical and you have body shops. Okay. Now there is some overlap there sometimes, right? Because obviously one has to do with the other sometimes, but take them as exclusive industries, right? I say the mechanical is a need to industry. And if you want a car, you drive something mechanical, you will need to go to a mechanic sooner or later, unless you're going to drive the thing and the wheels fall off and stuff.
Different story.
Body shop, not so, right? Yeah. This is an as-need business. And then we factor in the 10-year mark, which is factual. You can't argue with that. It's a statistical fact. That is a tremendous challenge. Mm-hmm. Right?
It comes down to whether you want to say need to, have to, or a discretionary and a necessary.
Bingo. I like it.
It's the same thing.
That's even better.
The only time that recently what we've been seeing is our business becomes not a discretionary business when your wheel falls off your car, when you're in a major car accident, when you have a small little ding or a dent that you can live with, you go from necessary to discretionary. And those things flow with the ebbs and flows of the economy and prices and
they
everything. Do. And we're definitely seeing that right now in the market. Post COVID, obviously COVID will that level will never probably happen again in the repairs. That whole cycle of that will probably never happen
that
again.
was definitely
the leftovers from the 2 crazy years after
that was an anomaly that nobody could have foresaw with a crystal ball.
We can't account for it in the future. 23, and I firmly believe that obviously 20, 21, 22 and 23 generally is deemed as crazy market time, excess repairs, crazy numbers, just such a high volume because of the COVID. 24 and 25, in my opinion, is kind of a course correction onto where we left off in 19. And so we're starting to see that, and we saw that last year, and that's based off of what we're seeing in the numbers and claim volume and just repairs. Right. It's a readjustment. Now
I want to touch on what you said earlier about when you said discretionary and
necessary.
So now we're gonna talk to Chandler. I just want the folks to know that you see me looking at the paper, it's because Chandler's time is very important. So we want to make sure that we hit certain topics with him so we can cover things and make sure that he can get back to taking care of business. But it's interesting. I just want to, and we're going to talk about some more specific challenges here shortly. But to me, that is a huge challenge that as an industry, let alone V&J, all right, but I'm more concerned about V&J than I am about the industry. Yeah. With the discretionary versus, or the necessary versus not so necessary or only as needed, right? You get in an accident. Oh my God, I got to get the car fixed. I don't know. Where the hell do I bring the car, right? Most people I used to do a thing on the radio, right? Man on the street, I used to call, right? Mm-hmm. Walk around. If I ran up to you, I said, hey, your car sounds like shit. You got to get it tuned up. I said, most people right off the bat, I go to Uncle Sal's. My whole family's been going there for years. Now, if I run up to you and I say, Chandler, holy shit, the guy just backed into your car. He whacked the hell out of your car. Most people look at me and go, oh, I don't know where to go. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But mechanical, they could probably rattle right off. Uncle Vinny's, blah, blah, blah. So how do we, as V&J, right? Now, you can say industry too, but more specifically V&J. So how do we try and change that rubric, that perception, and take it from body shop is as neat to making it as significant as the mechanical side? That I happen to think it is. Okay,
I agree.
I happen to think it is. I mean, especially I said on the radio a couple of years back that the result of COVID was we saw a transition from leasing back to owning. Mm-hmm. So when you own a car, you become more personally invested in the car. Mm-hmm. So you want to take care of the car. So how do you see that as an owner going forward in the 21st century? Like, how do we try and change that perspective so that, the consumer looks at us as more of a legitimate Me Too thing, not just, maybe. So
I was actually having this conversation literally last night with one of my friends, Randy, and, there's multiple steps, multiple prongs. Obviously, I could do it one way, somebody else could do it different. Okay. But the way that we're looking at it is it's an education perspective. Right now, especially with the economic factors that are going on, is nobody wants to spend money. Right. Everybody's afraid, everybody's insurance rates went up for no particular reason.
A lot.
Because they went up,
tremendous in the last 4 years.
Went up, and now they're afraid to put in a claim. I see every day consistently more and more vehicles on the road with damage. Doors bashed in, tailgates bashed in, bumpers hanging off. And, it gets to a certain point, you're like, somebody's got to fix these cars. Right. And if nobody is reporting the claim because they're afraid that their rates are going to go up even higher, that's where this is leading to. And from an education perspective, if it's something that you're not at fault and there's proof that you're not at fault, there's education there. You drive your car into a pole. Okay. Your rate's probably going to go up. We don't know how that calculation works. We're not those lucky people that to be able to get to work with those numbers. But based off of what we've seen and what customers tell us, when the claim, there's never a direct correlation of I put a claim in, this is how much it goes up. And we get asked that question every day.
Yes.
Is how much is my rate's going to go? It's like,
it is.
I don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
I can't figure that out. But from an education perspective, what we can do is educate consumers to know better what we see and what consumers have told us, to make sure that people are more aware. And that's, step one of the education thing. And then partially step two is, explaining, and I guess it's still kind of education, but making sure people know, the effect. Maybe it is better to put pay out of pocket or do a self-pay. Maybe it is, maybe you have the money. Maybe you have the money burning a hole in your pocket. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, you never know what anybody's economic circumstances.
So being able to have that education conversation, but
yeah, I agree. It's definitely a lot of education. Trying to get to these people because so many, and you wouldn't think it's the case today, right? With Google this and Google that, but so many people are ignorant.
Yeah.
I mean, back in my day, the insurance companies were the only source of information.
Yeah.
And I would argue biased.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, we get people coming in probably, I wouldn't say it's every day, but I would say more than once a week. This is my first accident. I don't know what to do. And I like look at them. I'm like, really? I'm like,
right.
You're 35, you're 25. I mean, good for you that you're 40 and you never had an accident. But realities and the numbers, the facts, that's kind of your anomaly. And we educate those people and explain the claims process and explain our process, because ours is different than most other shops. But doing that education, and that's when you try to build that, that stickiness, try to build that moat with the customer to make sure that they have a successful interaction and you're retaining that customer as a repeat client, and they're also recommending you to other
and I emphasize that here too, by the way, all the time, what you just hit on about the fact that we do have a much more comprehensive and personal approach to engaging the customer. We really do. And I could say that truthfully because I was on the road for 30 years. I obviously have been to many different shops in many different parts of the state. And V&J truly does and always has. I would argue it's more thanks to you. It's much more comprehensive and formal. But we really do take a lot of time to try and educate the customer. And that's a benefit to both, right? To the business and to them. And I think that's definitely where it starts, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about that here in just a second too, with regard to how we get there. All right, so let's move along here. There are, we may have talked about some of this. I don't know. There are major challenges facing the collision industry, both locally and nationwide. We've identified a few, and all right, so we're gonna talk about that now, right? We're gonna drill into some of this stuff right now, folks, with Chandler. We're gonna get his opinion here on some of these things that I feel are the most specific. There's a bunch more, I'm sure. All right, and we were talking about some things in the drive out here, but I think these are specifically the stickler points for the industry and for us in particular. So I think what I want to see is we're going to identify a few things here, and we want to find out how V&J is positioned to meet these challenges. All right, so let's take the DRP program first. All right. Now, what I did, folks, is now you've heard me. I'm going to talk to Chandler about some of these things. You've heard me talk about this, all right, on some of the shows where I identify these different things, the DRP, the photo problem, right? I tell you all the time, just say no to photos. You do not want to be taking photos of your damage constantly in the insurance company, the DRP program. And I'm going to talk about some other stuff here now, but let's get Chandler's opinion on this and let's see what he thinks. So what do you think about the DRP program? A challenge, a hiccup, not to be concerned,
it was born out of, cost-cutting measures from a carrier perspective, from an insurance carrier, and
I can tell you what it was born out of. It wasn't born out to help us.
No, it was not. Yeah. No, it was born to just basically cut and make more money for the carrier and dividends at the end of the day, and did not take any, did not consider the repair itself and the safety and reliability of the vehicle.
I agree.
And so it's been a thorn in, everybody's side for a long time. Some people jump on board with it. Some people are against it. We are very anti-DRP. And we have been for a very long time. We feel that, you have two methods of business in at least two in our world is, you get in bed with a DRP or you get in bed with a customer essentially. And you're satisfying what the DRP wants you to do, or you're satisfying the customer. And at the end of the day, we've chosen to do that customer model where the customer is the most important thing to us. I don't care what an insurance carrier says, oh, we need to get the car out this way or this day. That's not the method that we've taken at all.
Good point.
And from a organization perspective, we've always been that way, and that's also in our core. And the DRP program is nearing, in my opinion, nearing the end. There's too much to deal with on the repair side of things, that there are large, trying to think of the word here. There are large consolidators that are coming in, and they're on all of these programs. And eventually, what's going to happen is they've gobbled up enough shops, and
like the MSOs and the consolidators.
Yeah.
They're most of them end up having agreements with these insurance companies,
but
right?
What people don't realize is that once they gobble up enough shops,
right,
they're going to stop the agreements.
Okay.
And then at that point, basically, they are in control, because now basically, if this insurance company A has an agreement with body shop A, B, and C, and they have 5,000 shops across the country, and they come off the program, and they lost their biggest, the carrier lost their biggest DRP shop or program, and the shop says, that program's done. Who's going to be in more control here? This national MSO or this national insurance carrier? It seems like what we see is the shop is going to be in control at that point. That's what we kind of hope will happen. When that will happen, I don't know, and how it will, but that's the feeling of a few people in the industry is the route is going to go, and the DRP programs are eventually going to die off just from a lack of available shops.
Okay, so as a challenge to V&J, you see this as something that's going to die of its own volition.
Eventually, yeah. I don't think it's something that we have no control over it. I can't, control who goes on in the area, who doesn't go on. I can control that I'm servicing my customers and making sure that they're happy, and trying to bring more people in my door by serving those customers and knocking on more doors and making more happy customers. But I have no control over the DRP.
But what about, and folks, just so you remember, the DRP, it stands for direct repair or insurance sponsored shop, right? You've heard me talk about that quite a bit here. All right. It's the humble opinion of Crash Course that it is a very destructive program, and it serves no good interest for the consumer. In fact, I've highlighted here before on this program and on the radio show, numerous factual cases where those programs have actually been directly implemented in very bad outcomes for the consumer, right? I like to talk about the case in Texas. It was a State Farm. It was a State Farm and shop.
Yep.
All right. And it was terrible. The shop cut corners to save time because the insurance company was putting unrealistic time constraints on the shop. The shop, unfortunately, felt that was more important, because, again, it always comes down to money. They let this car go out the door. They did an improper repair to the roof. The car subsequently had a devastating accident on an interstate. The roof collapsed in on the doors. The people were trapped in the car, and they burned up. Unfortunately for the insurance companies, they didn't die. And I say unfortunately because if they were dead, it would have been a better outcome for everybody. They lived. These people lived, all right? And they was horribly burned, husband and wife. And, to me, that spoke volumes right there about why these programs are not good, okay, and why you as the customer, the consumer, should never, ever be involved with an insurance-sponsored repair shop. You want to be bringing your car to V&J Auto Body, okay, a state-of-the-art facility like Chandler just explained to you, where your interests and not their interests are going to be secured, all right? We're going to represent you. We're not concerned about the insurance company, all right? We're going to fix your car the way you want it, all right, and will be repaired the right way. So that was very illustrative of obviously a very extreme example of what happens with a DRP program.
Anything can happen, and that specifically.
But that would never happen in our shop in V&J.
The carrier demanded to that shop fix the car this way, and
quickly.
That was not, but also to ignore the repair procedure.
Right.
And because the repair procedure was ignored, and there was a consequent accident, if that car was repaired as per the manufacturer, that wouldn't have happened.
Those people would have been able to get out of there when it burst into flames.
Yes.
Okay.
And because the repair procedure was not followed, that it was the consequence of it, and that's why it was a $40 million lawsuit.
Yeah. And of course, I don't have to tell you folks, the body shop got 80% of the liability and State Farm got 20, but that's another podcast. All right, let's move on. We got to get Chandler. Photo inspections. All right. This is a real pet peeve of mine. All right. I hammer this all the time on the show. People are taking photos of their car. I try and explain to people that once you surrender your photos to the insurer, it becomes their property. They can manipulate it. They can investigate it. They can share it with other third parties. I said, you lose total control. It's a privacy issue. It should be totally 150% ignored, and you have no obligation to cooperate with the insurance company. So from V&J's perspective, is another challenge, right? How do you?
It's a pain in the ass.
What do you say to that? How do you look at that?
It's a pain in the ass because generally speaking, whoever is writing that estimate, whether it be a human or now more recently AI, can't completely understand what is actually there in front of its face, or in front of our face, shall I say.
Right.
And, whether it's repair versus replace, whether it's, repair versus refinish, it does not understand, or you cannot physically grasp that. And I mean, we get customers that ask us to try to give them estimates based off of photos. And there's always a little caveat, basically, well, I think it may be this, but I need to see it in person because, and it's happened time and time again, is that little dent is really a crease down the whole panel.
Yes.
It's like, well, you took the photo in such a way that I didn't see this.
Yeah.
And so
that's true. That's right. We get them on podium and that, and you're looking at it and you're like, I can't tell if this thing's a dent. And
then it shows up and basically it's 5 times worse. Or it goes the other way as well. It could be, the shadow and the shading of the dent may make it look worse. So
it looked worse than it really was.
Directions.
Yes.
And, the carriers definitely are trying to, outsource this and use that method to basically, if you want to say offshore or outsource, whatever you want to say, to try to systematize and just make it as simple and cheap and fast and effective for them. Not for the repair, for them, because it's going to cost them less money if they're writing a lesser ticket. And at the end of the day, that's just less out of their pocket and more to the dividends to the shareholders.
And some of those people may never show up at a shop either, right?
There's that as well.
Let's face it, especially in the economic climate we find ourselves in. And that gets back to what we were saying earlier about as need and need to, right? So now,
see, what's scary about this is that, like you said, those people that are not showing up to the shop, whatever they do with that money, they're doing with that money. But what people don't realize is if they get in another accident, the carrier is not going to pay out again.
That's right.
They're going to basically be on the hook for that $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, whatever it is. And now when you show up and Miss Smith says, oh, well, that money's long gone. Well, Miss Smith, insurance company A is not paying you that $5,000 again, and you got hit in the same spot.
Right, because you never told them what you did with it, right?
Where's that money coming from?
You can keep it.
You better put it in your savings account.
The proceeds are yours.
You better put it in the savings account.
Exactly.
Not use it, and hope that basically you don't get another accident.
That's true. So that's a challenge for us, though, right? Going forward again.
I really feel that it's going to be very interesting and very tough, especially seeing all these damaged vehicles. The claims are probably still going in. The money's still getting paid out. Where is it going? And now when you actually need to fix it, it's going to be very interesting. Yeah, and that's something that this industry has never seen before, because if you think back 10 years ago, photo estimating, remote basically doing that, you had to have an in-person inspection.
Oh yeah, that was like a faux pas. It was like, you can't do that.
You weren't even seeing cars at customers' houses. And so there was no way that existed. This is new, and we're going to all have to figure this out at the same time along with the customer, because it's never happened in this industry.
Right, and that's another challenge for V&J, right? And when we say what we mean by challenges, folks, is as a body shop operating in this environment, when we're trying to service our customers and provide, top-notch service, these are some of the things that, that we have to overcome as an organization in a, like Chandler said when we started this conversation, a very fragmented industry, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can just look around within the vicinity of where we are.
Yeah.
There's some shops that I wouldn't bring a wagon to have it, fixed or painted. Okay. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, I'm just, calling it the way it is. I mean, there's some body shops out here in the 21st century that are fixing cars the way they fixed them in the 80s. Yeah. All right. And that's a problem, folks. And, and I've said this to the folks, if you end up in one of these shops, at a minimum, you could be in for a very big disappointment. Yeah. Right. At the worst,
you can tell.
I don't even know. It could be anything today. Technology problem.
You can tell a lot based off of the experience as soon as you walk in the front door.
Absolutely. And, totally agree today, especially.
I've been in some shops that I'm like, how would somebody bring their brand new, insert any car, to this shop? I feel like I'm back in, like you said, 1980.
Yeah.
It's just like it is scary. And what's even scarier is the technology in these vehicles, and these people are fixing these cars, and they are not fixing them properly.
That's what I said. The technology packages alone in these cars, and
it's not add-ons anymore. This is standard.
Yeah, a lot of it's all standard now, right?
Yeah, National Highway Safety Transportation Administration. This stuff is standard. This stuff is on your entry-level Toyota Corolla all the way up to your S-Class.
Right.
We did a in-shop presentation basically to the staff last year and compared a 2003, 2013, and a 2023 Civic and S550, and comparatively to watch the standard safety features that got added to these vehicles. And at first it was the higher end, and
right.
then by
We only saw it in the higher end cars.
By 2023, your $15,000 Honda Civic and your $150,000 S-Class had the same exact thing. And the places that you're taking those two cars may be very different, but they need to be repaired the same way.
Yeah,
and
I said that technology has leveled the playing field. Mm-hmm. You could be driving a Range Rover, or like Chandler just said, a Honda Civic. Now, okay, granted, we can do semantics here and say, oh, well, what are we talking? Okay, I get it. It's going to be a little fancier over here. But generally speaking, we're going to find, generally, in a general sense, we're going to find that the same type of technology will exist. I agree. And it's really scary. And I hate hearing this argument all the time. Well, you shouldn't be disparaging these other shops and this and that, And I say to that, especially on the radio, I had a couple guys call in, small operators and everything. And they said, it's not right. But it's not a matter of, I don't look at it as a matter of right or wrong.
Concern.
Thank you.
It's a safety concern. If you are
today, especially
if you are fixing a vehicle that you are not tooled, trained, or equipped to fix, you should not be touching that car. You should be telling that customer, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry, I am not capable of fixing this vehicle. I do not know how to fix this vehicle, and nor do I have the technology to fix it.
Thank you.
That will never be said.
Exactly,
because they
folks,
want the job.
See, you heard it from Chandler, right? Because you've heard it from me. Exactly. Therein, as I said in the drive out here, lies the devil in the details. Guys just aren't honest. And folks, this is a problem. Listen up. All right. Hear what Chandler said. This is a problem. All right. The devil in the details. Most of these guys are not going to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, this is food on their table. Mm-hmm. Right? You drive in, you got your fancy Cadillac, you got your fancy Tesla, or your fancy schmancy, Range Rover.
Right. Insert any brand.
Any fancy car, or even a Hyundai. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this guy's looking at it. Let's stick with the restricted cars, right? Because he's not even going to tell you he can't get the parts. That's another thing.
Even any EV.
How many people were calling us in the beginning of the Tesla debacle?
Every day. Every day.
Can I send the car there? I can't get the car to run. It won't start.
I talked to so many shops that I never even had known of, and they acted like they were my best friend. Because they're trying to get something from me because they need something. And, we are very firm on this, and have been firm and will stay firm, is that, we have invested the time, the money, and the energy into these certifications, and trained our technicians, and tooled up to be right, and equipped our spaces. And because you don't want to do it doesn't mean that I need to help you out.
Exactly.
It comes down to safety and liability.
Right.
That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
It does.
Safety and liability.
It does. And folks, that's a problem. All right. Listen to what's being said here. That's a problem. You don't end up in a shop. You don't end up in V&J Auto Body. You end up somewhere else. That's a problem. Okay.
And don't get me wrong. We're not the only certified shop on Long Island.
Not at all.
There are a few other certified shops that are on Long Island that you'll find online that I've seen at conferences and do reputable work. Right. But there are a lot of shops that are not.
Right, but we are one of the most highly certified and credentialed shops. I think
go to 24, 25, 26 certifications. That's a job in itself, just managing that. I have another one in my email of a new EV that basically wants us to be certified.
Right, we stepped into Rivian.
Certified. We're on the commercial side and the passenger side.
There you go, commercial and passenger.
We're also the Rivian ASP, which is an authorized service provider. We do all their warranty work for their vehicles, and then we're helping with them grow that program out. So, we are staying on the forefront of technology and programs, making sure that if something, I don't want somebody to come to my door and me have to say, I don't know how to fix that.
Right. Because we would.
I would say that, but I want to be educated so I don't have to say that.
Exactly.
That's the difference.
Right.
And that's tooling and everything.
Absolutely. All right. So let's touch a little real quick on artificial intelligence, because that seems to be showing up now on some of these insurance companies are using artificial intelligence platforms to actually write the estimates. And then the other thing I want to touch on briefly too is increasingly aggressive insurance industry with endless cost-cutting programs, one-size-fits-all approach to historical sublet, subcontractor, and job-specific requirements. Right? What we mean by that is a lot of stuff that in the past was customary and usual. Now all of a sudden they're getting creative and saying, well, we're not paying for this, we're not paying for that, and we're not marking up. So how is V&J approaching those things, and how do we think that might impact our way of doing business?
Starting with AI, I was at a conference, I think 2 years ago, when the largest estimating platform launched their AI product. It was interesting. It's still not there.
Right.
And will eventually get there? Yes.
Of course.
But, you've seen how long it's taken ChatGPT to get there. And that's just doing usually basic things. Sometimes it's getting more advanced, but now you're taking and having to use a database and estimating system and judgment times that are taught based off of different varying factors and apply all that together. It's going to take a while for that system to get up and running. That will shift the complete function on what you'd say the front end of our repair process. And we are monitoring it and testing it and making sure that we're staying up to date on it and making sure that we don't get caught behind. But it's definitely not there yet. And I've even talking with adjusters and our staff have seen where, it'll write something and it's very off, and it also can't see behind right now. It doesn't have X-ray vision. Neither do we, but that's why we take the car apart. Right. And that's why we are able to see behind and able to see and know, hey, this is damaged and that is damaged. And those things are huge factors in writing an estimate and can be either overwritten or underwritten. It goes both ways. There's everybody likes to talk about the underwritten and it only wrote $1 and it's a $10,000 estimate. But it also can go the other way. Yes. It should have been a $5,000 estimate and it's a $15. And shadows and everything and misinterprets. And that's detrimental to the carrier. Right. Because then the carrier is paying things that they shouldn't have to pay. Right. And it goes in both directions. Yeah, it does go in both directions. But I'm curious to see how that's going to impact it's going to change our business model, and stuff like that. Anybody that tells you that they're not worried about it and that they got their head in the sand. Yep. And they're not going to last. It is here. It is to stay. Yep. It's in every industry. I'm part of a business group and AI has been the hot topic since at this point, I don't even know how long, because it's just been the evolution is changing, and I use it every day. I use it for various different things every day. And I like to stay personally on top of it as well. So that basically I can make sure I personally don't get, left behind. Well, it's another reason why, the customer, you want to make sure that you come into V&J Auto Body, because like you just said, you're trying to make sure that we stay at the forefront of this stuff. Yeah. Not that we get caught, behind the tide. Yep. And then we're trying to play catch up, or what are they talking about, And also for the folks, again, I would say, this is another, it's right in there with the photo inspection thing. You're going to have artificial intelligence estimates. These people need to understand that this estimate is not reflective of the damage. Like you just said, it's not even accurate, right? It might actually, overestimate or underestimate. So and then another reason why the work that they did and redo the work that they did. Correct. And we're not getting paid for that. No, not at all. Of course not. Which that's completely different conversation. Right. But another reason why, folks, you want to be coming to V&J Auto Body, you want to make sure that you have a V&J Auto Body. You want to be sure that you do business with us when, unfortunately, you end up in the situation where you're looking at that you need to have your car fixed, because there are many different aspects of this claim process, and I talked about that. All right. The claim process itself isn't just one thing. Okay. It's many different things in a whole process. So if you're with the facility, like Chandler was just talking about, that really doesn't, they're not at the forefront of this stuff, or they don't have the ability to order certain parts, or they don't have the capability to make sure that your technology packages are reprogrammed and made operable again, you're going to have a problem. At a minimum, you're going to be very unhappy. At worst,
you could be put in a bad right. You could be put in a bad spot. All right. So you want to make sure you're with a state-of-the-art facility. Of course, here we're pushing V&J Auto Body because that's where I work, and they are our amazing sponsor. And I feel V&J Auto Body is an industry leader here on Long Island. I think we do set the pace. I really do. I mean, I agree with you. Are there other shops out there? There are, but I think from many different perspectives in the auto body industry, I've always felt that, especially now since you've taken over, that V&J Auto Body is a pace setter. We are an industry. I would argue that we set the pace and we set the example. What you should be. It's
interesting. I've gone to many conferences, and I sometimes get stuck in our four walls and don't realize how far ahead we are sometimes.
We are.
And then I look back and I talk and I see, and I'm like, oh, whoa. I'm like, that's like, and I think we have this little itty bitty problem over here, and it's like they didn't even see that problem. Like it's sometimes I get a little like dumbfounded because I'm like, oh wow, okay, maybe we are, and it's. I guess.
No, I think we are. I think we absolutely are. Yeah. I mean, and I know you said, you get shops calling you. I even get it. I'll get shops, either guys that I'm friendly with that work in other facilities that are smaller, they're not quite, with the technology or the training. Yeah. And they'll call and they'll ask for my advice. Hey, listen, we ran into this, what do you think? Or, how do you think I should handle this? Yep. Whether it's an insurance issue or it can be a shop issue. If it's something very technical, I'll defer it to you, obviously. But the point is, folks, is that we have other businesses in the industry that come to us, okay? And that speaks volumes right there in and of itself. All right, so overcoming marketing and advertising strategies of the insurance industry. All right, now this is a pet peeve of mine, okay? And this is, and what I mean by that, I mean this on a personal and a professional level. I work at V&J, so obviously I have a personal stake, obviously, in our well-being. Yeah. Okay. So this has been a pet peeve: overcome marketing and advertising strategy of the insurance industry. Now, we talked about a couple of them, right? DRP, all right, time, place, and frequency, money. All right. They have a lot of money, all right, and they have time, place, and frequency with their advertising, with their DRP program. All right. They are reaching our potential customer faster and more consistently than ever before. Now, that's a huge challenge for the industry, but again, I'm not really concerned about the industry. Yeah. I'm concerned about us, V&J. Yeah. So how do we see us meeting that challenge? I know we do meet it, as best we can, but how do you see us trying to meet that challenge more effectively and be more competitive in that area, in that space?
It's evolved rapidly, obviously, with technology, connected vehicles.
It's horrible.
And, some manufacturers, not to name names, you get in an accident, the car knows you got in an accident, and it's asking you what to do. And that goes back to they're pointing to the certified shops. And so, the insurance company is trying to do the same thing to, drive their costs down. And they obviously are pointing to their DRP programs. So, I'm not never, but maybe one day. But I don't have the capital to take a Super Bowl ad out. Right. And we all know who took a Super Bowl ad out and, beige pants, whatever color pants.
They all do, yeah. USAA, name them. I mean, they're all right. Exactly.
And so, that's something that, like you're saying, that's, time and a lot of money.
Right. But even the access thing, like this is, I guess because I was in the insurance industry on that side, and I know exactly why they do this. And you're right, it is cost cutting. It's controlling the claim, controlling the cost, controlling the process.
First notice of loss, FNOL.
Right. That's why they embraced this DRP thing from the beginning, and then they went ahead with this, which to me is even it's where they're giving erroneous information. Right. We both know this. Right. We've both seen this at the shop. Right. Where our customer, I've even seen it at the shop, folks. And Chandler can testify. We'll actually be at the counter helping a customer, right? How pathetic is this? And they're on our phone with our customer and trying to tell them,
to go somewhere
well,
else.
You really need to go here or, and you're like, hello?
Yeah, steering. I remember.
He's here. She's here.
I remember I was a little kid and John actually wound up getting, I think through Liabra, which is one of our organizations, an ad on News 12 about steering. Right. And about how that exact thing happened. I mean, this is nothing new. Right. It's been happening. They're just finding new and creative ways to do it.
Right.
And back then, it was just more so you're reporting the claim, and they're trying to, and this will date this memory, but we had there was like a recorder that was connected to the phone to be able to record the conversation because it's illegal. It's illegal in the state of New York.
They were reading a script.
Yeah.
Right.
But because this person's in Ohio or whatever state, that they're not aware that they're not allowed to do that here.
Right.
It still happens. And that first notice of loss is the controlling factor. And
Absolutely.
Whether it's State Farm, Geico, whoever it says, oh, you must do this. No, you're not required to do any of it. It's your vehicle. It's your asset. You need to do what you want to do with it.
Right.
And they like to brand things, and they like to put, very close-ended words on things. The must, the have, the if you don't submit this, we're not going to pay the client.
Oh, yeah, right. The open-ended threats and the hollowed
they're
out.
Not real, that they're not actually there. But they seem very real.
Of course.
It comes across from an email and that big logo on the top, and it's scary.
Absolutely.
But it's not. And then as soon as you push them back on it, they fold because they know they're in the wrong.
Right.
It's
right. So as an industry,
it's top
the industry itself, especially here on Long Island, okay, they totally gave up on this. There was an opportunity there. So, but from V&J's perspective, do you see, as the owner of V&J, do you see any effective way that we may be able to combat that?
Yeah, it's
either maybe maintaining communication with our existing customer base. To me, there seems to have to be some way to cleave some of that to because that's a very disruptive process there.
It is
for us.
The thing, and I mentioned
for the industry too, but for us, for V&J Auto Body,
it definitely. And I mentioned this before. Is we have to create a moat around our customers,
right?
And the carriers have created a moat around their customers, and now you have two competing moats basically. And so you're trying to make yourself more sticky, and you're trying to give yourself top of mind awareness, and you're trying to make sure that you're staying with the customer, and staying in communication. And we try to personalize our experience, and we try to make it feel more, at home when if you walk in and you're a repeat customer, and our staff knows, you have two kids, or your grandmother just passed away. Those small little personal touches. I mean, Starbucks. I don't know. Do you go to Starbucks at all?
I do.
So, Starbucks used to be considered. There was basically Starbucks for the longest time was the third place. You had home, work, and Starbucks. That was their whole model.
Right.
So
it was kind of cozy.
Prior to the drive-through, you came in, you sat down, you had your cup of coffee, all that stuff. Recently, Starbucks has lost that. And so what Starbucks has tried to do now is they've tried to become the third place again. Okay. And what they're starting to do is, and I don't know if you realize this, I had Starbucks this morning and they did it. They've instructed all their employees to write messages on the cups, write messages on the bags. Have a great day. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much. Heart. And it creates that connection.
Like a connection again
with the customer.
To the customer.
And also when you get to the drive-through, not, how can I help you? Or what do you want? Or, how are you today?
Right.
And they've recently started to do this to try to regain that third place. Okay. And that's the same thought and same concept that, we've taken over a long period of time and tried to approach and have that personal feel, that personal touch, because when you have that and your staff knows about your customers, there's no better feeling of knowing that you're at home and you feel safe and you feel comfortable with those people.
And you're hoping that this is a way to kind of to form a more
intimate relationship,
so that hopefully if they're confronted by this, they'll know, you know what, I'm going to go to V&J and have them deal with all this.
And I can say,
folks.
I'm blue in the face that you call us before you call the insurance company. Call us before they call the insurance company.
I say that all the time.
I got in a car accident back in June. Somebody basically drove out in front of me at a double light. And do you want to know what's funny? You know who the first person I called was?
No.
Donna. Donna was the first person I called.
Donna was on our show.
Donna was the first person I called. Before I called my husband, before I called my father, before I called anybody, Donna was the first person I called.
Now, why was that?
I was frantic. I didn't know what to do. I own a body shop. I own an auto body shop. I do this all day long.
But Donna's amazing.
Donna basically, in that moment, you're like, okay, who's the professional? Who do I know?
That's it.
Who knows what to guide me? And I vividly remember the conversation after I got off the phone call. I'm like, why did I just call Donna? It was just like, it was instinct. I called Donna, and basically she reassured me what I was thinking and made sure that I was making the right decisions. And so, to build that, if you want to say third place, maybe not third, maybe we're fourth place or whatever, because you don't want to come to us every day, which I understand, and nobody wants to see us.
We love to have you stop by and say hello.
Yes, we'd rather do that than have you keep coming back for our services. And we say it to customers basically, is like, great seeing you. Have a nice day. Hopefully you don't have to come back.
Exactly.
Because we don't want you in an accident.
Right. We don't want anybody getting hurt.
Exactly. But that connection is definitely, I think, what has to be built. That's where the success is, because nobody's going to have a marketing budget as big as State Farm.
Right. Exactly. I agree.
How many zeros are in that marketing budget? I can only imagine how many zeros are in that marketing budget.
Okay, good. Very good. So finally, we're going to ask Chandler, because this is something that a lot of people are interested in. I know I am. I work there, but I'm still. How do we attract and hire and maintain the best talent? In the workforce. And where do you see future employees coming from? So, and this again ties in with, I think, with what we started talking about earlier, where you have, the industry is kind of cyclical, especially after COVID, right? You were just saying how you're thinking this is kind of a reset now, right? So being a big production shop, being a trendsetter, all right, being an industry standard setter, obviously we have a fairly large workforce, okay? So how do you, as the owner in an industry which is extremely challenging to begin with respect to the ebb and flow of the business cycle, how do you see V&J handling or attacking that? Like you want to get good people, you want to be able to hold on to them, and where the hell are they coming from? So
it's
because everybody wants to go to school and and push buttons and everything. So where are we getting these people from?
It is it's a multifaceted approach, and it's something that our industry as a whole kind of fumbled on many years ago.
A long time ago.
And we're now getting the opposite of whatever the opposite of reaping the benefits is where, we're dealing with the problems, I guess you'd say.
Chickens are coming home to roost.
Yeah. Well, there is nobody to come home to, basically.
They're not even roosting.
Yes, that's the problem. So, we've had separate conversations with, trade schools and things like that. And, we're signed up actually for, I think it's a month from now. There's a career fair at the local high school.
Oh, there you go.
And, all of those little organic things, give the young generation and I say young, and I'm
what high school, by the way?
Lindenhurst High School. So
Lindenhurst High School, folks. So look for it. There's going to be, what is it?
It's a career fair at Lindenhurst High School. I want to say it's April 28th.
All right.
End of April.
There you go.
So we're going to be at the career fair. And then also, I believe BOCES has Suffolk Community College also has an annual career fair. And some of the dealerships that we work with go there for mechanics, mechanical technicians. And, we're going to also be at that one as well.
I think that's great.
There are alternatives to college, and not everybody is going to be able to sit behind a computer. Right. There are people that need to work with their hands, and that's, it's a trade that, we have benefits. We have, a great environment. All of our space is climate controlled. There is pretty much no shop on Long Island that has an air conditioned shop.
I've never come across that.
It was very expensive, and it's very expensive to run, but it comes down to, the work environment. It's, you can work like a human being. You can work like a distinguished person. You're not sweating and ripping.
Well, and it also makes a more productive employee. Right, let's face it.
But it's also going to extend
comfortable and clean.
Going to extend the lifetime value of that employee as well. And they're also going to say, I would rather work in an air conditioned environment. I would rather have,
sweatshop.
And we have, in our new facility, we have on-site private showers, we have laundry, we have a locker room, a cafeteria. We're trying to, as we said before, is differentiate. We're trying to be a differentiator. We're trying to attack the problem in a different way and offer, whether it's services, benefits, or just an environment that is different. We over the summer, on the side of one of our buildings, painted all of our core values on the building, and to just be a visual reminder.
Yeah, we shot some video of that, by the way. It's really cool.
Be a visual reminder of who we are as a company.
Right.
Culture has to be built and harnessed and honed and grown. And, culture is as important as technology and equipment and training, because that is what runs the business.
Right.
At our core, I was speaking with somebody else about this last week. At our core, which is not my quote, but we are a training organization. If we can train our people and our process and our systems the right way, we can do anything.
Right.
Whether it's fixing cars, whether it's making rocket ships, you name it, basically. If you have a great training culture and the people understand what the end result looks like, you could do the endless possibilities.
Yeah, I like that. I just want to mention, so we're gonna have a footprint at some of these places. Now, I'm sure you would agree that also helps to strengthen the brand, right? That's
brand recognition.
Right? We're getting out there.
Yep.
We're going to be at trade shows. We're going to be at career shows.
Yep.
So I like that. I like it. I think that's great. I think hopefully going forward, you're able to do more of that.
And hopefully we see an impact. And it's not a right away impact. Obviously, these are small seeds.
Well, these are things that you grow,
water them, and grow them.
Exactly. So that's good, but we also, the thing about this industry, folks, I've seen this over all my years being involved in it from an insurance adjuster. The body shop industry likes to say, right, we're our own business, okay? But the problem with that is your own quote unquote business is very difficult, right? Because let's say you have a labor rate that's such and such an hour. Insurance company comes in and says, well, I don't care, I'm paying you this.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a very difficult challenge on the economic side, which is very different from a lot of other industries out there, right? A guy pumping gas, a guy putting floors down, a plumber, an electrician, a carpenter. Name anybody, folks. Come on, let's be honest here. Okay, even the mechanical guy that we talked about earlier. All right, you go to the mechanical guy, he tells you, hey, I get $98,000. I mean, shit, for that matter, you go to a lawnmower place.
Yeah.
The guy will hit you over the head. I get $99 an hour. Yeah, but it's a lawnmower. I get 99, maybe more today.
Probably more.
Okay.
Plumber, when would a plumber walk into your house for under
forget it.
Like $500? Probably about $400 or $500.
I got hit over the head with a mallet from those guys.
Yeah. And it's not.
So now we look at our industry, right?
But it's negative from the consumer's perspective, but the business knows its cost and its values.
Right.
So yes, it feels like you're getting hit over the head because it is a big price, but they know what they're worth and they're charging their worth.
Right, but this is the thing I've always said about the auto body industry. But we're being asked, think about this. We're being asked to fix something. We're being asked to take something that's damaged, right? Whether it's a piece of metal, a structural part, or maybe even a technical part. And we're being asked to return that,
Pre-loss condition.
To its pre-loss condition. It was before it got hammered in an accident. No problem.
Yeah.
We have the skills, the technology, the training, and the processes.